You're listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Red Moon Podcast. That's right, live every single Tuesday night right here on all your favorite social media networks. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
And
it don't work no more. It don't fit.
It don't work. That's
Dang.
right.
While doing that, I realized that my iPad's in the kitchen, so I will go get that on our review.
I was going to say, you don't have a way to hook up the old way anymore.
The old way.
iPhones,
the way of the future,
have just it's
way of the future. This will still connect to my iPad, though.
I mean,
I can still use that.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's
Until
weird
I
though
update
because
that.
it's crazy that Apple. I mean, they innovate so much. They added they added USB-C. Now everybody's going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
15 years ago. Yeah, I was going to say 10, but 15 works too.
You know what I find so funny?
I don't think USB-C's been around 15 years.
It may have been, but I don't think it was.
It wasn't a standard. No.
Yeah,
it may have been in its early conception.
I'll go 10 though.
It's crazy that it's been a decade at least.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Thunderbolt and USB-C kind of coexisted on the Apple platform, and they ushered it in.
Yeah.
They're the ones who put it on their devices saying, look, this is the new format. This is the new standard.
They helped create the Thunderbolt technology. And then they were like, nah, we're not going to make this a standard.
Everybody uses Lightning. It's better. It's better.
Well,
no, it's not.
It's because they were proprietary and you had to pay Apple for those Lightnings. So now that was income that now it's like, well, and you get a cheap USB-C from the Dollar Tree. So
that's it.
They're just like, crap. That's a little extra money we're no longer getting.
Of course. The Apple way. They wait till they get pushback from a government entity like the UK. And then they're like, oh, no, we were always going to change it.
I'm not normally...
we were always going to put USB-C on our next phone.
I normally don't root for like widespread like regulation like that. But in this case, I'm like, you know what? This is a lot easier. It was needed. Just make Apple do something.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm happy. I'm happy with the device. It's beautiful. It's nice. I had a iPhone 11. Now I've got the beautiful iPhone 15, the natural titanium color.
Oh my goodness!
And you've got the black one.
Yeah. We're going to spend the whole show talking about iPhones the way we spent.
Sean's got the 14 over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm 1 year behind.
He's 1 year behind.
We spent our entire time during cigar lounge time going with our phones. Now we're going to spend the whole podcast.
No, we spent the entire
phones.
cigar time trying to figure out contact posters, which is the nerdiest, dumbest thing ever.
I do, off of the iPhone topic, we do have a very unique, in my opinion, a little odd beer from the folks at Voodoo Ranger. We've tried many Voodoo Ranger beers. And I'm going to have to take a picture of this if Neil's not watching the show to show him.
Show it up to the camera.
It's called Atomic Pumpkin. Now, on the bottom there, it says special release with the special crossed out to say spicy release. Why? Why is the Atomic Pumpkin a spicy release? Well, not only does it have cinnamon and pumpkin, but it's brewed with habanero.
What?
It's going to be a spicy beer.
What are they going to think of next?
Well,
are they going to add a USB-C to the can?
They might.
Wow.
Actually, I'll tell you what they thought of next, because Neil sent me a text last night, and that's why I mentioned him with this beer. I went to show him this beer. They're on he's called it a babycation, before the baby comes. They're on a vacation, I forget where, but he likes to go to local breweries and get beers and such, and he wanted one beer.
I don't think our audience knows that they're having. Yeah, we did. We mentioned it when he's here.
So.
Well, they posted.
It's on Facebook.
Okay.
I just wanted to mention to our audience, our semi, I'd say maybe twice a year guest Neil, who comes on the show, his wife and him.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything until it was public knowledge, but now that it's on Facebook, I'm like, I'm safe. They can't be upset. Like, you spoiled it. It's like, no, you put it on Facebook. It's done.
It's done. Facebook official.
Facebook official. But he went to this brewery and wanted just a single beer, he said. And of course, you've heard of growlers, right? They now have what's called a crowler or crowler. I'm assuming crowler because it's spelled like growler but with a C. It's basically a can growler. It's 32-ounce massive can because craft beer and cans are now becoming more popular. Used to everybody liked glass bottles, but
Right.
the actual flavor is supposed to be more true in a can.
Yeah,
and because
blocks out all the light.
and because craft beer is growing more popular, cans are growing more popular. So now instead of a glass bottled growler, they make, because you have to have a special machine to cap it, and only a few places actually have a machine that can do this. But yeah, it's a 32-ounce can called a growler, and that's what he had to get.
Basically, it's the can that you go into the gas station and come out with a brown paper bag.
Except for this is supposed to be good, the good beer. Not
Okay,
this.
okay.
This is not your
Four Loco.
No,
You remember those back in the day? They got rid of those.
This is not Bush's. You know,
45.
some also Bush Light. No,
Sean's trying it.
he's trying it. I'm gonna try it out. It's gonna be interesting.
I'm not drinking because I got to wake up early, but I want to try
You
it.
should. I'll let you sip it.
It's not spicy.
Oh, that's good.
It tastes like pumpkin spice.
I like that. No, it does have a. I can feel it in the throat. It has a little kick.
Are they,
Really?
Okay, here.
Yeah.
Hold on. Am I? So you're handing it to me? All right.
It's just
I'll
a
try
very. It's like a dash of pepper. It's not hot.
I don't know. I think that's the cinnamon.
It comes in the back end.
Cinnamon burns too.
That's true because it could be the cinnamon
That's
over
very,
the habanero.
very, very light.
But I do like it. The pumpkin and the cinnamon flavor are good.
I actually taste more of the cinnamon.
Yes,
which I'm happy.
I taste the
with.
cinnamon the most. It
Yeah.
doesn't.
Can I take one more drink?
Yeah, yeah.
One more
Okay.
sip?
After it has cleared your palate,
You can
then
kind of feel
start
it.
to
Yeah,
feel the.
you can feel it in the back of your throat.
Yeah,
I feel like
you can feel the.
I've
burn in the
had
back of your throat.
spiced wine.
I'm
Like
looking
I've
forward
had
to drinking a full can of that.
I've had a jalapeno wine, and then my sister recently went to a winery and brought back this. I forget what it was, and it was really good.
Yeah, it scratches your throat.
But it was hot.
does.
Like literally, she said she went to No, it's good though. She went to try it, and they said you can only sip it. Like if you try to take a big gulp of this wine, you're going to burn yourself. And it literally.
Disclaimer.
But she bought a bottle. I tried a glass, and literally, yeah, I could only do the one glass, sipping it. And after that, I was done because it's really not a wine you would drink a bunch of in one sitting. But it's interesting. But this is nowhere near as hot as that. Like, there's no heat to this really, other than
No, the heat really is just
after it's gone.
Yes.
You can,
It's right on the back of your throat.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah.
It's a good kind of. And I was worried because when you said habanero, it's the heat.
Yes,
But
yeah.
it's not the taste.
I was
And I'm
worried
okay
because
with that.
I didn't want to have a hot flavor.
No.
And some pumpkin beers I don't like because they're too pumpkin-y. I do like that it's a mellow pumpkin with mostly cinnamon.
I am in the group of criticizing anything of this season right now that's pumpkin flavored.
Yeah.
I am like, and here's the thing: there are some things like beyond traditional pumpkin pie.
Yeah.
It is very hard for me to find pumpkin flavored anything that I like.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very particular about. Like, I'll have a well, no, that's apple cider.
Yeah.
I've maybe had some people that put in like a pumpkin cider.
Oh, yeah.
It's okay, but I'm not like a pumpkin spice latte.
There's some pumpkin beer, like Sam Adams, they have their Oktoberfest, but they do also have a pumpkin beer. And there's
Yeah, just
there's
It's called the Jacko.
yeah, Jacko
Ale.
Did we
It's
not
very good.
have that last year
We
on the
have.
show?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's pumpkin-y.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was good.
I like that one.
Yeah.
And there's also one called like Pumpkin King or whatever. I forget who brews it, and I like that one. But most pumpkin beers, I'm not very fond.
It's almost like if it's too strong a pumpkin, I'm just
Yeah.
like everything goes crazy on it, and I'm just like, no, don't need.
No,
this.
I like this actually.
good.
I was very nervous. Like I wanted to try it, but I was very nervous, and now I'm happy.
But it's spicy, little hot, a little bit.
It's making me burp. Oh, which is good.
I think
I was
it
gonna
is.
say it's got
got
carbonation.
If it just got a little cooler out, like I mean, I like the weather, but
Yeah.
like it was a little muggy and warm today. But yeah, nice crisp fall evening. This would be a good beer.
Yeah.
yeah.
warm you up a little bit, maybe
By
get you
a
ready
fire.
for
Oh man, yeah.
get you ready for some of them nights inside.
Stop.
Where you're
Stop it.
snuggled up to your sweetie.
Get you a big fat stogie.
There you go.
And some of this
If you get
by fire.
you get a big gulp of it. It burns.
I bet.
It burns.
He said, he said if you
Yeah.
get a big gulp,
Here's the thing.
gulp, it'll
would
burn.
would you drink it and eat anything with it?
No.
It's not. It's
Yeah,
I don't know if it'd be
personally,
good with.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I would like it with
The
food.
flavor is good enough on its own. If you're looking for something
Yeah.
that's a treat, but you're not going to drink it with.
I just don't know
anything
that the
else.
flavor would complement.
Anything.
Yeah, I can't think of like
Pumpkin
what
pie.
Maybe, but then
See,
I mean that's
no,
too much.
that's too
Like
much
I don't want
pumpkin.
pumpkin
Too much
pie with
pumpkin.
beer. Yeah,
Well, yeah, and pie and beer. I'm just like, I don't know. I'd almost want like pizza, but pizza's like, I want a good
but
beer.
pizza don't work
Yeah.
with pumpkin. You don't want pumpkin and pizza.
That'd be gross.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you could really pair that with. Somebody out there, I'm sure, will pair it with something.
Pumpkin. I'm surprised we don't have a pumpkin pizza during this time of the year. I'm surprised we don't have like.
Well, isn't that not just a pumpkin pie?
Yeah.
I mean, pizza's a pie.
Yeah, whoa!
I'm just saying, pizza pie.
We can have a debate on whether or not pizza is legitimately a pie.
It's a pie.
It's okay.
Pizza pie. That's what they call it.
It's not a
pizza pie.
pizza pie.
pie.
But I'm not even gonna go down that rabbit
That's
hole.
all. It's all it is. It's
We got
just
a great show. We're talking about beer, but the writers are back. Well, soon to be back to work. They've made an agreement.
Mayhap.
Why are we not talking about the big news on the block right out of the gate?
because
we got a review.
I was actually looking forward. Yeah, we do have a review, and I was looking forward to a longer strike, but we'll get there. We'll talk about it.
I was hoping Hollywood would be, give me a little bit more time to catch
I
up.
wanted
on all
them to
these
crash
shows.
and burn even worse than they already are. So
Yeah, we're gonna get into it because it's some of the talking points and just the people who are cheering this on are just. It's so over. Nobody cared. Nobody cared. This industry's so freaking full of itself. But anyways, and here we are partaking in it. We're just adding to the demise of our own
now
culture.
it's just the writer's strike currently. The
Right.
actors haven't come to agreement.
they're
but,
still in.
yeah.
They're still in solidarity for the SAG.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll get there though.
Yeah, we'll
we
get
do
there.
have a review to get into.
We do. And there are still some great movies that are out there that are not in theaters that are actually making the rounds, which then brings us to another headline we're going to discuss about Scorsese's on the warpath again.
I know.
He's making comments about saving film and that we're totally destroying it.
The IGN article had me cracking up because they literally pointed I want to
We'll
hear
get
the
into
review
it.
first because we have some interesting movies.
Well, and it's weird because
More
most people
independent.
are trying to figure out, well, wait, what did they review this week? Because we didn't tell anybody last week. And then there was nothing new that came out this week.
We debated it for like the whole week. It wasn't until the weekend when we were just like,
True.
yeah, this was good. And it wasn't even the one we originally decided. We were just like, oh, me and Sean watched it and was like, yeah, it's worth it.
It's worth it. But it's interesting because this week, too, was also the worst week of the year for the box office. No movie that released, which really there was only one major one, Expendables 4. But no movie that released ended up actually cracking over $10 million
That's
in
sad.
gross, which is just
Pathetic.
awful, pitiful. So there's that, plus The Nun still... It came in second, but it was number one the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So that just tells you there's been nothing out.
I mentioned in the review the reason we've kind of chosen the movies we have the last month is because there's not been anything worth it in theaters. And honestly, the independent movies and the streaming movies we've picked these last 4 weeks, while not all of them have been the best, they've been better than anything we've seen in theaters for the most part.
So what did we review? Well, here is our review of No One Will Save You.
It has now been a full month since Red Moon has seen a movie in theaters, and truthfully, it feels we've come off the better for it. While September has seen no shortage of IP films, with The Equalizer, The Expendables, The Nun, and My Big Fat Greek Wedding all releasing sequels, and even Kenneth Branagh, consistent yet so underwhelming Kenneth Branagh, has released another Agatha Christie, Hercule Poirot film. Despite the fanfare of sequels, however, most of these films have come and gone with little buzz, scraping top box office positions based solely on their name, or because they are the only movies out, more so than because they've garnered critical or audience praise. Instead, we have indulged ourselves with a smattering of independent films, some that have smaller theatrical releases, others that went straight to streaming. And even the misses have felt worth viewing more than the major Hollywood-produced films. This week we decided upon the Hulu original film from 20th Century Studios, No One Will Save You. A sci-fi thriller about a young woman named Bryn, played by Caitlin Dever, living alone in a small town after the loss of her mother and best friend Maud. One night, Caitlin is awoken by an intruder in her home, only to discover the intruder is extraterrestrial in origin. After a narrow escape, Bryn comes to discover her visitor was not the only one. No One Will Save You is definitely light on the horror and suspense compared to its marketing, but still offers plenty of chilling moments and effective suspense. With a simple story told in a unique way, And next to zero dialogue for its 90-minute runtime, the film relies almost solely on visual narrative and the solid acting of its lead, Caitlin Dever. Fans of thrillers or alien sci-fi horror will most likely get their fix, as there are plenty of creepy moments that strike perfectly on the nerve of facing the unknown and overcoming the dread of defenselessness. And while lack of dialogue creates a unique narrative, with a story that offers solid emotional pull, there are times when director and writer Brian Duffield goes for an abstract psychological moment that feels disconnected more than adding a psychological horror element. Likewise, some of the visuals and horror elements suffer from a case of less would be more. The alien designs are of the generic gray alien kind, with a little variety thrown in to showcase differing forms of the aliens. While in some scenes they come off chilling, other scenes meant to evoke uneasiness come off laughable. There are also a few too many out of the frying pan and into the oven moments, where Bryn escapes one encounter only to immediately land into an even worse situation. No One Will Save You is still more unique than most of the largely produced Hollywood films we've seen this year. And while it does have a few missteps and generic moments, it is entertaining and makes up for some of its misfires with a unique story. Caitlin Dever gives off a great performance requiring physical emotion as opposed to dialogue, and the movie really just could have used some fine-tuning when it comes to the script and suspense elements. I give No One Will Save You 2.5 out of 4 stars.
2.5 out of 4 stars.
So we talked about this over at Brian's a little bit, and I think I'm going to go up half a star.
I think you should.
I am too.
After kind of mulling over, and Sean helped me, because it's funny, I noticed the pieces, but I didn't quite put them all together until Sean mentioned it, and I was like, no, you're right, as far as the themes go.
I was smart tonight?
You were.
You were microchip.
Wow.
No.
I got the arrival?
Yeah, he got the arrival.
I got it.
That movie still sucks.
I still stand by some of my gripes in the review as far as less would have been more in some instances. Some of the CGI wasn't that great, and I think showing so much of the alien spot on all the time just really made it no longer scary. It's billed as a sci-fi thriller, and it's in the horror section of Hulu, and there's really not a lot about it that's really horror. And while there is a little bit of the thriller suspense element there, it kind of loses that halfway through, and then it's not really suspenseful anymore. So I'm sure it will scare some people.
To me, this had Village Syndrome with regard to it not really being, which I didn't see the trailer. I'll be honest with you. The first time I heard about this film was you all talking about it. I don't have Hulu.
Yeah.
So I was actually kind of looking forward to watching something on a network that I don't normally see, and it kind of made me mad that it's a 20th century production, but released on Hulu, which, look, call me insane if I may be in the minority when I say that I don't feel like most people have Hulu. I feel like I'd have to look at the numbers to get the hard
it's
analytics.
Pretty big, yeah.
But it's one of the top ones, but I don't think it's as big as like Netflix and Disney Plus.
It's not as big as Netflix.
And I'm kind of surprised that I'm like, I know they bundle it in with the Disney Plus subscription.
I think it is bigger than Disney Plus, but I'm not. No, it's not. Disney Plus, they don't have Hulu overseas, so Disney Plus, what goes on Hulu, is actually on Disney Plus overseas,
and that's my
which
only
I find
fault.
odd because some of the
They've combined everything into the Disney Plus app over there.
Yeah.
And I just find it odd. I wish they would do the same here.
I thought they were.
I think
you can get the package with Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN.
Disney Plus said that they were going to eventually everything was going to be under one app.
They were talking about it back in the day.
Yeah.
But I mean, they don't have it available now.
No,
it's
not
still
yet.
Separate.
Yeah.
But it irked me because I was thinking, after watching this film, I was going to recommend it to my sister who hates aliens, and it was going to scare the crap out of her. I wasn't quite scared, mainly because we also watched The Ritual, which is an older movie, but
we should talk about that a little bit too.
We will. But no, I was actually very surprised at the structure and the story, and I was going to recommend it to them because I was like, it's PG-13. There's nothing I feel like that is too offensive in it or too.
There's no language.
There's no language
at all.
Yeah, touche. But no, I honestly was going to recommend it to the family because I thought it would be a nice sci-fi flick for them to watch.
Yeah.
And it's got some pretty decent elements in it. And again, I thought the overarching story and just the way they have the character emotion play out throughout was done really well. And I'll agree. I was settling on 2.5 until Sean did bring to light some of the plot elements that I was like, okay, that cleared it up a little bit more for me. And if I probably viewed it a second time, I might have come around to that. But there were just little things that I think were there that I didn't either catch or pay attention to the first time. But overall, I thought it was a riveting movie. I was entertained from beginning to end, and there was an allure of mystery throughout of how is this different from other Alien films. Like you could tell there were definitely pieces that were there from other things you've seen, but nothing, it kept playing out as like, how is this going to change it up? How's this going to change up the formula? And you could tell it was building on that. And I do think that by the end of the film, it completes that. And it does make you think, oh, all right, that was actually a pretty good little sci-fi thriller. That's the only thing that I think I would knock it on is it's more of a sci-fi thriller than it is a horror movie. And granted, I didn't see the trailer. The first time I watched it was just as the movie itself. So I wasn't really taken aback by feeling misled. I wasn't misled at all by...
Yeah. And to be fair, I mean, generally they do lump thriller in under as like a sub of horror, which I get, but I don't get. It kind of depends, I guess, on the thriller film.
To me, that was why I said it had Village syndrome, because Village was billed as a horror movie, and it's not.
It's not. Yeah,
it's like a love mystery thriller.
Well, Crimson Peak is very similar because it's a very gothic romance film.
My parents just watched that.
Not a. I like it. A little bit of a bizarre storyline, but it's Guillermo del Toro. It's not his best, but it's still better than Shape of Water.
Sean, what about you?
No, I was at 3 stars. I enjoyed the movie very much. I thought the scary elements I thought they were good enough to creep you out. But again, I let my 10-year-old son watch it too. I thought it was safe enough, and the violence wasn't quite bad enough that I would say this is something I would not recommend to younger audiences. I mean, there's some pretty scary moments, but there's not a lot of blood or gore or anything like that.
It ain't much worse than a Transformer movie.
Yeah, yeah. No, I really enjoyed the plot. I enjoyed the acting, especially for a film that doesn't have any spoken words. It's just all emotion and groaning and squealing. Like it's there. Like you get what agony she's going through when she gets hurt, and when she's scared, the panting, the anxiety, like it's all there. So you feel what she's feeling when you're watching it, but they convey all of that without any dialogue. And I thought that was pretty creative. I didn't even catch it until the end of the movie because the acting was so good that I was like, wait a minute, nobody even spoke in this movie. That's kind of crazy. Thematically, like I enjoyed the idea of a girl that's been alienated by her own people, so to the point where when aliens actually invade the Earth, they sympathize with her, and they think, well, wow, you're just like us, so we'll kind of leave you alone. By the end of the film, we get to that point. They do chase her down quite a bit, but I thought, like you all said, there was elements of these other movies. I kept finding it was like the house was like Signs.
Yep.
Yeah.
The boiling water was like the glasses of water in Signs that she set up. Nailing the boards and all that stuff. It's like every kind of home invasion or every kind of even like Night of the Living Dead. It's like we'll board up the windows and we'll seal ourselves in. And even the title of the movie kind of messed me up a little bit because it's no one will save you. So by the middle of the movie, I'm thinking, yeah, nobody is going to save her. She's going to have to save herself.
Right.
And they kind of give you this hint that she's going to make this last stand and defeat the intruders, but she doesn't. And I like that. I like that it's like, no, not even you can save yourself in this situation. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. You're either going to be a part of it or, and surrender to it, or you're going to be taken,
or demolished and annihilated.
I agree. The CGI on several occasions was kind of lackluster I feel like in the darker scenes of the movie,
it was better.
It was better, and it's usually like that. CGI just looks better in the dark,
and anything that looks alien like that.
Yeah. But they showed the aliens a lot too much, to the point where the only moments where I feel like you are really kind of creeped out by their presence is when you see their eyes glowing over the roof of the house, or when you see one creeping behind her in the blurry background down the hallway. But once they bring it into focus and and it chases her down the hallway and fights in the kitchen, it's kind of like Gremlins.
And it's interesting you bring that up too, because I will criticize the CGI to a degree, but also having discussed it here on the show and talking about kind of what the synopsis is or the summation is by the end of the movie and at the end of the film, it does make a little bit more sense that they would make them goofy and not as intimidating. I mean, there's definitely moments where certain forms of the aliens that showcase themselves are intimidating, and they're clearly after her.
Yeah.
In a very a forceful way, a violent way. They're not just trying to play nice with her.
Yeah.
But it is interesting that there are certain ones that do tend to be more on they give you the, I call it the Avatar cat face look. Like when you see the avatars when you first go see that movie, they're supposed to have the big, droopy eyes that make you fall into them and make you feel more sympathetic to them because that's what they're alluding to. They want you to feel compassion for them. And so it kind of makes a little bit more sense after we've broken down what the end of the film actually, ends up being, why they would do that. But it still doesn't, you can still tell because and granted, look, for a $30 million budget film, not bad at all.
It wasn't even. It was 22.
22 million.
Yeah, wow. Or 22.8, so 23, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, like, that, not bad at all in that regard. But and actually kind of mind-blowing considering what smaller budget films are able, which we've known this now for a while with things like that Jordan Peele's even pulled off.
The last couple movies we reviewed have all been very low budget. I think most of them have been well done. And it's interesting to see some of these more independent films or small budget films come out, and they don't have a lot of fanfare or promotion. Like this had some, I did see some promotion for this online, but very little, especially being from 20th Century Studios, which I told you when I did the review. I find that interesting. Disney bought 20th Century Fox, and a lot of the movies they've released of them have been releasing on Hulu. They did the same thing with Prey, which ended up being very popular. And it makes me wonder why Disney isn't releasing some of these movies in theaters where they're so low budget that they could make a good profit off of them. This wouldn't have been a huge hit, I think, in theaters, but I think they would have profited from this movie on this one.
I actually think they would have too, especially with the lull that we've seen over the last few weeks.
Now Prey I kind of get because the Predator franchise was ran into the ground, and I could see them being like, we don't know how audiences will take it. So I kind of see why they went streaming that route. But
one of the other criticisms I wanted to bring up was also, Sean, you kind of alluded to it a little bit with the moments of them, I guess all of the suspenseful kind of scare tactic moments that they use. I felt like they were a little too forced or contrived. I just felt like there were one too many times. And it might have been cleaned up by editing. I think the way they were edited was particularly not bad, just overused. How many instances of them showing her getting away and you thinking, okay, she got out of that mess. She's clearly she's in the clear now, only to turn around and boom, there's another instance of. And look, there's something to be said of, I love movies that play it up really well. The hype of, the protagonist continually just gets in one thing after another and it continues to just build and build and build. But there's a creative way to do it. And I felt like this movie wasn't bad. It just, there were a couple lazy, moments where I thought, you could have edited that more creatively or even shot it more creatively so that it wasn't just such, an instance of the same thing we had already seen before in the movie. So that was one little other knock I would give it. But it is funny we're still settling on the 2.5 star, but I think I'm leaning up on the 3.
Bumping it to 3.
So it's like, do I change it on the website? I guess I can.
I think there's only been 2 or 3 movies where we've kind of, but it has happened. This isn't the first one.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you've ever changed it online, but after it's been written,
because it's done.
It happens.
Sealed its fate.
It happens.
But we've also gone back and seen movies that you've given 3.5, like Finding Dory.
Yeah, that one was bad.
Ugh, should be like 2 stars at most. Ugh. But I haven't changed it.
I really liked that seal. Jared was great. Jared is the best part of that. That I would watch that movie just for I would jump to all those scenes. I would jump to those scenes alone with Idris Elba yelling at the retarded seal, and that'd be it. That's the best part. I was I love those moments.
But no, so 3 stars for No One Will Save You. Definitely worth checking out if you do have a Hulu subscription. Or if there's other ways to check it out, maybe I can, let my parents and my siblings see that.
If you have a Netflix account, you could check out a Netflix original called
agree.
The Ritual.
Sean, another one that you pointed out to us.
I think he mentioned it on the show last week. I think we were on the podcast when he mentioned it.
I've actually told you guys about it before.
You have.
Okay, but
I know you have.
It's just one of those ones that it's like it's a hidden gem kind of movie.
Well, I wanted to ask you because I know that it said that it came out in 2018, but was that
2017?
Or 2017?
Yeah.
Was that in the UK and then it released over here? Did it release over there?
I saw
it on Netflix in general. Then
I saw that movie when we were living in the house on McIntyre Lane.
Dang.
So that was at least 3 years ago that I watched that movie.
I'm pretty sure
on Netflix.
it was produced in the UK and made, but Netflix bought it they didn't produce it, but they bought it and slapped the Netflix original label on it as they do. But I think it had a worldwide release in 2017
because
it
was
Netflix.
Yeah, I told Keith when he came to record the No One Will Save You review, I said that's the first movie in a long time that has actually made me jump.
It's very creepy.
Like it's
very
creepy,
well done.
And that's the weird thing is even movies like The Witch or a lot of Ari Aster stuff, but like there's creepy things in it, but they don't necessarily they're more on the unhinged and like unsettling.
Yes.
This one actually gave you good jump scares, and it was kind of scary. And again, one of those movies where I wish No One Will Save You would have taken a chapter out of its book in terms of creature reveal and creature design.
Yeah, creature design.
Less is more.
But the fact that they keep it in the shadows and silhouetted so much. See, I think I just prefer the less is more approach, just like we talked about with Paranormal Activity. I know some people can't stand that, like, nothing happens, you don't see nothing. But to me, that's scarier than
your
the
imagination
unseen is more scary. Yeah.
It's like once you show me the monster, whether it's Freddy Krueger or Michael Myers, it's not that I don't enjoy those movies too, but they're less scary to me because it's like, okay, now I know what it is.
I would even argue that's a different genre.
And it is. Well, those are slashers compared to,
But that's what's funny is M. Night used to beat that drum. I mean, that was his whole thing with Sixth Sense. Is like he said, the scary thing is not showing the killer with the bloody knife coming after you. It's what you don't see. Yeah. And that's why I'm like, he's removed himself so far from that role into forgetting his own, care of the horror genre. Yeah. And it's like, to me, that is the brilliance of where The Ritual came into play, and even it has a unique story that I thought was not only well told, but just, again, from beginning to end, had my attention. And the other great thing about both of these films, if you're wanting to still get into the Halloween spirit just before Halloween, next week, by the way, we're starting October. Both of them are run times of like 90 minutes. That was beautiful.
Both of them.
I love the fact that it was like you didn't have to worry about, I'm going to sit down for a 2.5 hour, 2 hour, 15-minute movie. Hour and a half, that's it.
They don't
and it was the
overstate.
same thing with the last one we watched with the hand.
Talk to me. Yeah.
Talk to me,
it was
yes.
a shorter film.
Yep.
So that's...
And I'm okay if I'm okay with that. We talked. I know way back when we watched Zombieland, we used to talk about it's like if that's all you need to tell the story, that's great. There's no sense in stringing something out, especially like with No One Will Save You. With that being a movie that has no dialogue, I think the 90-minute runtime works perfectly because you, like you said, you don't really notice because I mean the acting is so well done. She's so isolated and by herself most of the time that you don't even realize like there's no one around for her to talk to most of the time anyway.
It's funny. The only people that talk in the movie are the aliens.
Yeah.
They're the only ones that communicate with each other.
And even she, I mean, this is a real, she can show her agent or anybody else.
Caitlin Dever?
Yeah, she could just be like, hey, look, this is my chops. I mean, it wasn't like she wasn't already getting roles.
Yeah.
But for this to have been her first major lead role, I mean, she went across the landscape in terms of emotion.
Yes, solid performance without any dialogue. And The Ritual being 90 minutes, I mean, they get you into it. And I mean, with it being like kind of lost in the woods and it's just those four characters as well, it's good that it's not drug out to where you get bored because it's like, okay, like Blair Witch. That's not a long movie either, but nothing it's a found footage movie where literally nothing happens.
The
in that
only
movie.
reason it would have been worthwhile when it came out was because nothing like that had been done.
Yes, it was
It's
scary
one of
at the
those
time. You go back and watch it now, it's like, this movie's terrible.
Yes. It shows its age and it does not hold up well at all. I agree, especially once the secret is told and you already know what's coming.
The Ritual's not found footage, but it's still them lost in the woods. And I was like, this is way scarier than anything they tried to do with Blair Witch and some similar movies.
Could have been easily overdone to the point of the four friends that are involved. Easily, you could be like, okay, the tropes of who each one plays and the role that each one, the archetype that each one plays, could be driven into the mud of like, oh gosh, this again. But none of the characters got exhausting. None of them felt like they were out of the space of like, okay, that one's not acting like himself. Like they each have their own characteristics, but none of them are too extravagant that you're rolling your eyes like, oh, this wouldn't happen.
Well, and I like the themes.
It made it very
too.
authentic and real.
Sean was talking about some of the themes of "No One Will Save You," but I really liked like his turnaround of how he like learns to kind of stand up for himself or oppose like even though like I don't want to spoil
too little,
anything,
too late.
but it's still one of those things where it's like. You see at the beginning of the film, like kind of the little prologue where he runs, and throughout the movie, like him running, and then finally it's like, no, I'm not going to run anymore. And I did like that moment.
Yeah,
without
agreed.
spoiling anything, it was good.
It was very good. So definitely 2 films right there you can check out this weekend if you want to get in the
Star
Halloween
rating,
spirit.
what would you give The Ritual?
3.
Yeah.
3 out of 4.
That one was a solid 3, like for me, definitely.
Yeah, no
high
qualms
end.
on that one.
Same.
I would revisit both of these.
Yeah.
Like this
I'll
one,
definitely watch.
This one was one that I wasn't really thinking about it much after, and it wasn't. It's one of those that just I don't know why I'm surprised that it stuck with me so much after discussing it tonight. But even beforehand, I kept thinking back to the movie, and I was like, that's one that I would actually like to tell people to watch and get their opinion on it.
Well, it's different and it's unique. I still think I like The Ritual better just because it was scarier, and I think it was a little bit. The script was tighter. I think it had less loose ends, or not loose ends, but loose threads.
Well, it
I
also
guess.
kind of, I feel like The Ritual touches on a bit of lore that hasn't been touched on. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, when you really think about it, it's supposed to be a simple version of the Wendigo, which is like a deer tree demon
it's
thing,
like a forest spirit,
like a forest
demon,
spirit kind of thing, and it kind of touches on that, but in a very creative and tasteful way.
Yes.
But that's just something. That's a story. It's like there's been 1,000 movies about Bigfoot and 1,000 movies about aliens and trolls and all these other
I
kind
can't think
of
of any specific movies.
folklore,
I know
but
Supernatural had an episode about the Wendigo. And I want to say the X-Files did, but I could be wrong about that. I know they had the Jersey Devil in X-Files.
yeah,
but,
the Jersey
yes,
Devil,
yeah. So,
But no, I agree with Sean. I think.
but yeah, it's not been like a movie.
It's
that
not
I know
something
of.
that's been worn out.
Yeah.
you
Yes.
know that's why it was fresh.
Like you said, well, and maybe because it was made at the time it was, but it being the folklore nature, I like that more so right now than it seems like everybody's. It's kind of like the alien trope has been beaten to death.
Yeah.
And it's getting to that point now,
No,
just
it
like
goes
vampires.
away
It
for
does
a while and then it comes back.
Yeah.
It's like I told you guys I'm watching Invasion on Apple TV, and there's several shows that are focusing on like alien invasion
Extraterrestrial
and
life.
extraterrestrial,
Yeah. Well, I think it's just-
and the UFO thing with the government right
Yes.
now, and
I
all
think
that.
that's another reason
like
you're
that's
seeing
just stirring
so
it
much.
back up.
Yeah.
But it is interesting because, they die down and then come back, but almost in the sense that I think this movie was playing on that trope with the design of the aliens. They were instinctively also making them, drawing that connection to, we know this is the design you're familiar with, and we're going to
Gray
play
man.
into that because we're not trying to get you caught up into our unique vision of what aliens are. It's more about the story as a whole and the broadness of that than it is about the design of the aliens. Which I think when you watch movies like, I hate to say it, anything big budget like Prometheus or oh gosh, I'm trying to I haven't seen Prey, so I can't say to that, but even those designs are based on things that were original creations from back in the 80s.
Prey's just pretty much just your regular predator design,
Right,
only
with
he has
Indians.
he has a bone mask instead of a metal mask, but that's it.
So I mean, ultimately, it's like those designs I think are iconic because they were created by people who were trying to set a precedent back in the day.
Yeah.
Whereas now you have the age of digital technology where a lot of the designs get very ridiculous very quick.
They can,
just to be unique for the sake of saying, well, we're different.
Yeah.
And I mean, you still have to have some well-designed stuff. Like, I mean, what's the one John Krasinski did?
The Quiet Place.
The Quiet Place. That one was decent.
A
Though
Quiet Place. Sorry.
Yeah, I agree.
Though I would say that I know the first time I saw it, it reminded me of the Demogorgon from Stranger Things, but still, both of those were well-done designs for creatures that didn't look too abstract, but were still creepy.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But no, so there you go. 2 movies you can watch before the Halloween season kicks off. We got plenty more coming. We're going to be reviewing The Creator next week.
Yes.
And then after that, we do have...
Well, our first
The
Halloween
first
review should
major-
be next week as well.
It should, but we also got a major Halloween release coming called Saw 10
Well, that's
that we're going to review the week
that's
after
why
the creator.
I bring up the Halloween reviews.
Yeah.
because we discussed this a little bit. Are we still going to go with the theme that you had discussed a little bit? Should we announce that now?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm
So
fine with
that's
that.
The torture porn. Is that what we're going with?
That torture porn. I like
Don't
that.
Google torture porn.
No.
I tried
I've done that. Yeah.
I tried that. Now that is a legitimate like subgenre of horror that they nickname movies like Saw.
Yes.
But if you just type in torture porn movies, you'll get what you want. If you type in just torture porn,
You're gonna
doesn't-
get torture porn.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I was like, this is not what I wanted to look at.
You're going to get BDSM.
Well, I asked because I know we said obviously if we're doing that theme, then the original Saw movie's probably one we should review.
Yeah.
Do we want to make that the first one?
That is, I believe, going to be our first
Well,
film.
because Saw 10, which you're talking about reviewing after the creator, that takes place in between Saw 1 and 2. So if we do Saw 1 first, that one would narratively fall right after.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay.
Then that falls, and that actually will probably be
Okay.
our second week's review, and it'll serve as the Halloween
Yeah.
review as well as our review for that week.
We're gonna do Hostel.
I figured
I think
that's
so.
a big one. You have the first Saw, the first Hostel.
Here's the weird thing: as
there's
much
more.
as Saw gets, I think, the original kind of credit. I
Well,
think
Saw came before Hostel.
and it did, but I think Hostel was really the one that created the term torture porn.
I think
Yeah.
so, but that's because Eli Roth is just really disturbing.
Yes,
So.
and
Not that the Saw movies aren't; they are.
right, but not as disturbing as
Yeah.
Hostel or Human Centipede. Or
Oh, God. I can't watch that again.
We have not
I cannot
fully
watch that
discussed
again.
which torture porn movies we're going to review.
We should discuss those. I know that's come up.
But that is our theme.
I Spit on Your Grave is amongst a lot of the lists of
Yes.
torture porn, and that, the original, yes,
the
is good.
70s version.
That
or
one is
whatever.
good.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
Maybe
But
we'll
figure
throw
it
that
out.
one in there.
We know we'll have the first Saw next
I
week.
want to
After
watch
that,
the
we'll
one
get
with
into it.
the one that Stephen Lang is in. I keep seeing crap on Facebook about.
the one where he's like a blind guy.
No, it's the other one.
He's
Oh, the
not a
other
blind
one.
guy.
Okay.
Apparently, there's another one because the one that's blind is where he's in
There's
like
two
the
of
house
those,
by him.
and those are supposed to don't breathe. Okay,
Don't
those are supposed to
Breathe.
be really good, but I don't think those are horror. So the
those
other
are
one
not
you're
the torture porn
I was
ones.
pretty sure one of them was that when I looked it up, it was Don't Breathe.
talking- Okay, well, we can
Where
check
he,
it out.
he
I'll definitely look
ties
into
a
it.
woman up and tries to
I do want to
make
see
her have his
those because I
baby.
heard both of those are really
like
good.
it was really freaking creepy. The scene.
We will brainstorm.
We gotta
Yeah.
figure this
and
out.
we'll figure it out.
We have the creator and Saw 1
It's-
next
it's
week.
gonna
We-
be the
we know
most-
that much. We know that much.
Yes.
It'll be the most disturbing
Disturbing
Halloween so
thing.
far. That we've
Yeah,
done.
we've not done this genre, and there's not a lot of great movies in this genre, but
Yeah.
there are some.
But we'll probably be more.
We need to find one of those banned movies or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, just not even supposed to. The ones where they went over to overseas and like really killed animals or something. And, oh gosh, yeah,
Was it
we'll get
1,000
banned for
Ways
that.
to
Yeah.
Die or whatever, where like it was an online video of actual like executions.
Actual
and
That's,
people
stuff.
dying.
no, that's
Yeah.
Faces of Death.
Faces of
Faces of
Death.
Death.
and that
Yes.
is,
Yeah.
I will.
Yeah,
I-
that's-
I watched that in college.
Yeah.
Should have never seen it. It gave me nightmares.
I think there's multiple of those now, but
There
I
are.
have seen the first
and
one.
it's disturbing. I do not suggest.
Don't Google it.
Yeah.
Google torture porn instead.
I'd rather watch the made up crap than the
Yeah.
no human. Ugh. Okay, let's move on to headlines.
Yeah, headlines.
Let's get into our headlines for this week. We go from torture porn to that happy.
Yeah. Ba-da-da.
Alrighty, guys. Well, big news on the block. WGA reaches an agreement.
What?
You want to know what the agreement is?
Yeah.
So do we.
The WGA's working again, yes. They're going back to work.
Not yet.
Well, they come to agreement. They're going to. They're
tentative
going to.
agreement.
Tentative.
Oh.
So the deal was struck after 147 days of striking, I believe. The idea is that
I think they crapped out. They could have gone longer.
the picketing has ended. They
Yeah.
said no more picketing, but you have to wait. They sent out an email to their members. You have to wait till the guild says that they can go back to work.
Yeah.
Believe the vote was supposed to take place tonight. Don't know if there's been any news. Maybe we can check real quick on Variety or Hollywood Reporter. I'm not sure if they've given us an update on the vote totals. But we are supposed to hear that if the first approval process goes through, I forget which board of the WGA it goes to, but then it'll be handed out to the members for them to sign off on. Of course, I'm sure that the members of the board will rally behind the WGA members themselves.
I Googled it. This is the headline.
Okay.
I'm gonna click. It's a headline from Deadline. I'm gonna click on it and make sure. But it does say WGA strike to officially end at midnight as guild leaders approve tentative deal with big gains. So,
There you go.
So at midnight tonight, the strike is over.
And so presumably at midnight tonight, meaning, of course, after this show is over, yet again, more news will break about what the agreement probably holds. Apparently, they're very happy. They're cheering. A bunch of reactions online from everybody who's been picketing for the last several months, and their jobs have been just online.
I mean, actors have had to paint.
Yeah,
that's how serious it is.
I know actors. It's right. They had to paint themselves, portraits of themselves. Charity work for struggling artists.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So it still is going to be voted for ratification. That takes place the 2nd through the 9th of October.
Okay.
They have to. The two guilds have to vote to ratify it, but they did say that they can go back to work during the ratification process.
Right.
So it's okay for them to start working after midnight tonight.
It's a grueling process.
Yeah.
Of course.
It's like it's over, but it's not over until we ratify it. But you can go back to work.
I mean,
not
here's
over
the
till
thing.
they say it's
Here's
over.
the thing. Without getting into the deets of it, look, this is just union stuff back and forth. I mean, these are lawyers that are getting involved. Of course, every T has to be crossed and I dotted. And that makes sense. I get it. But, when you're dealing with it, of course, it is more official business than anything. Of course, the big news was that, while they're working on the ratification process and more people get back to work, that doesn't mean that shows are coming back right away because it's going to take time. And, of course, the SAG is still on strike. So SAG has to come to agreement and get back into their roles, and they won't be able to make movies or shows without them. So they may have stuff written for them to act in. But, of course, the Directors Guild and the SAG were all congratulating the WGA for coming through with this agreement. Of course, like I said, mostly tonight we'll probably find out after midnight once the details of the deal are released. It seems like the
updated Deadline article does reveal some of the things that they
go ahead.
Yeah, I think the one that we
I know
linked
the big hanging point up to the very end was based around the AI.
Yeah, they talk about that. Deadline has released another article since the one you linked to, but it does say delivering on issues that many scribes saw as a core to their profession. The deal contains big leaps in AI guardrails, residuals, and data transparency for writers. Leaps that could be translated into the upcoming negotiations with the AMPTP and SAG-AFTRA. Okay, so the guild negotiated a new residual based on viewership. They told members, made for HBSVOD series, so home streaming, video on demand, a series and films that are viewed by 20% or more of the service's domestic subscribers in the first 90 days of release, or in the first 90 days in any subsequent exhibition year, get a bonus equal to 50% of the fixed domestic and foreign residual. So anything that people view more than 20% of in the first 90 days, they'll get a 50% bonus, basically. With views calculated as hours streamed domestically of the season or film divided by runtime. So basically 20% of the runtime viewed, they get a little extra pay. For instance, projects written under the new MBA on the largest streaming services would receive a bonus of $9,031 for a half-hour episode, $16,415 for a 1-hour episode, or $40,500 for a streaming feature over $30 million in budget. This bonus structure will take effect for projects released on or after January 1st, 2024. So beginning next year and on, they get.
Is that 40,000 not per viewing?
It's a bonus.
It's a
bonus.
bonus.
They get a bonus if that's been viewed. So basically, they're saying if it's a feature film budgeted over $30 million, that would
The Witcher, or something like that.
Their 20% or their 50% bonus or whatever would equal to about $40,000.
Okay.
Is what they would get for that movie that they wrote on. The specific writer.
But I mean, is that based on how many view it or just in general? It says 20% of it being viewed. Like 20%.
It has to be 20% of the subscriber base.
Oh, okay.
So if 20% of Netflix's subscribers watch this movie,
and this opens up another
series, they get more money.
And this opens up another can of worms, which is, I'm sure this is all insider speak and metrics being shared amongst the guilds. But is any of this going to come to light with the public?
Well, they do talk about, I don't know about the public, but it says the companies agree to provide the guild subject to a confidentiality agreement. So no.
So we won't know
The
a
public
thing.
doesn't go. The total number of hours streamed, both domestically and internationally. So yeah, they're going to give the numbers to the guilds so they know what to pay them, but the public still doesn't get to know what the streaming numbers
And
are.
again, this may be me giving in and having too much faith in the industry, but if it really comes down to dollars and cents, the only hope I have is that if these guilds, whether it be the DGA, the WGA, or even SAG, if all of them have metrics on what is a flop and what fails, presumably they'll be in one spotlight thinking, oh, hey, in one regard, they'll be happy because they'll be like, well, we don't have to pay bonuses because nobody watched it. But on the other hand, they'll be hopefully thinking, we don't want to produce this crap because nobody's watching it.
Yeah.
And we actually have hard metrics now
good.
on who is watching this.
And they did get a pay raise besides just that bonus. So the WGA also got 5%, 4%, to 3.5%. Hold on, I'm jumping a little bit. There we go. In terms of minimum salaries, I was like, what am I talking about? The WGA got the same pay raises that the Directors Guild got without striking. So the company said, okay, we'll give you the same raise. The DGA got annual pay raises of 5% to 4% to 3.5% over the life of the contract. That's 13% compounded over 3 years. So I'm not exactly sure how those break down.
And that's usually how long the contracts last. It's about 3 years.
The DGA also got an additional 0.5% to fund a new parental leave benefit. The WGA won parental leave in 2020, so they already had that one. Okay. So they got a bit of a pay raise. They got the bonus.
It's funny, too, because
they got health and pension contributions, too.
Yes.
Okay. I wonder, too, how much of this, and this is probably not going to come out in any details once the deal is even struck, but I wonder how much of this was already decided early on. And, again, the initial agreement came out announcing that an agreement had been made.
Yeah.
All that statement said, or all the information that was released on the agreement at the time, was that one of the final sticking points was AI.
Yeah.
So I wonder if a lot of these terms had already been met up until the very end and had been met, 2-3 months ago. And this, that one sticking point on AI is what drove them to go as long as they did.
And I haven't gotten to anything about AI yet. It did say that they did get huge gains in demands for minimum staffing and duration of employment in the writer's room. So previously there had been no minimum staffing, but come December 1st, development rooms and regular writer's room for television and streaming series will have requirements regarding the minimum number of writers, which I do understand that. I'm trying to see if there's anything mentioned because they said they got great gains in AI guardrails, but then it's so far not said anything about what those are.
I was looking at a Variety article that was released an hour ago, and it doesn't
mention any of those guardrails either.
Nope.
Like it says for writer's room, the development rooms where writers are guaranteed 20 weeks of work or more are treated as post-greenlight rooms. For these rooms on first season shows, the minimum staff size required will be 3 writer producers, so that's more into the staffing.
Is that in which, and I guess that applies to spreading the workload even more? Okay, go ahead.
Because that's one of the things, one of the writers I mentioned to you about with One Piece, and so I talked about, because they do spitball ideas and stuff in a writer's room. That's what it's for. But they're expected to write so many scripts, and they kind of, after spitballing the ideas, they dibby out, you write this episode, you do this, we'll come together again. And basically they're having to spread the workload amongst too few people is what they were saying. But for the AI, it says, under the terms of the agreement, AI can't write or rewrite literary material, and AI-generated material will not be considered source material. Under the contract, meaning that AI-generated material can't be used to undermine a writer's credit or separated rights.
Okay.
So, yeah, basically, I guess...
You can't hold anybody's name attached to an AI piece of written material.
Yeah, if someone writes something, the AI can't rewrite it, basically write it. The summary notes that a writer can choose to use AI when performing writing services if the company consents and provided that the writer follows applicable. I would
say they're going to have checks and balances to
basically,
announce that they use
AI. If you're a writer and you want to use AI, that's fine. You're allowed to. If you write something without AI and you don't want AI to touch it, then that's how it goes. They can't.
I would even almost go as far as to say what they should have argued for, and maybe this is a stepping stone, but I don't know why any producing, any producer, the AM whatever, I forget their acronym.
AMPF.
I don't know why they would have argued against this, but I would argue that if anything has any kind of AI treatment, whether it's from an actual writer or not, it has to be denoted in the credits.
It says that the contract includes that companies must disclose to writers if any if any material given to a writer has been generated by AI or incorporates AI generated material.
Yep.
But is that only beholden to know it? Like the audience doesn't know, and just the writers and the staff knows, and like the
sounds like
producers.
Yeah.
Because I as a audience member, and you may say, well, what's the difference? It's like I want to know.
Yeah. No, it doesn't say
Because-
anything about having to credit whether AI was used. It says a company can't require a writer to use AI, and then it does say, that they have to inform a writer if any material given to them has been generated by AI.
And does the writer have to inform
It's
everyone else if they used AI?
It says they're allowed to use AI if
Yeah.
they want, but it doesn't say anything
Yeah.
about.
Does a writer have to disclose that they used AI to write their treatment?
It doesn't say. It says the WGA. It says that it reserves the right to assert that exploitations of writers' material to train AI is prohibited by NBA or other law. So basically, they don't want, say, hey, you have to train the AI, and then when you're done, we're done with you.
Right. I mean,
But it doesn't say anything about disclosing to audiences or that the writer has to disclose that he used AI.
Because to me, that's the tricky part is, I mean, in so much of this AI, it's like, I understand what their protections are, but part of bringing it to light is shining a light on it.
Well, they don't care if the audiences know, as long as they don't have to use it and they get paid.
No, presumably, of course,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I would think other writers
Yeah.
want to know if another writer in the room is using AI.
Well, it says, that they have to, like, if you're a writer, like they have to let you know that this material, what AI was
no, but
used.
does the writer have to admit when they've used AI to modify a
At
treatment
least
of
the way
theirs?
this is saying, if he's going to work with another writer, he has to disclose it to
Okay,
that writer.
okay.
But if he's now whether he has to disclose that to the production company, it doesn't say.
I would assume that they do.
I would assume, but yeah.
But
Basically,
I-
all writers have to know if any material given to them to work on, whether it comes from a writer or anyone else, has AI used or not.
And I don't know if you mentioned it. This is from The Verge, but it says the NBA also includes that the companies cannot require the writers to use AI software,
Yeah.
like ChatGPT or anything like that. So.
Yeah.
So they can't be forced to use it either.
Yeah, they can elect to use it if they want, but the writer does not have to use AI. The production company can't make
I'm
them.
at least glad that the WGA wrote in that caveat to say that if they want to use it to enhance their writing. I just think it's a little bit two-faced to say you can't demand we use this,
But if
or
we want
use it
to,
in place of us.
Yeah.
But if we're going to
But
use
if
it
we
ourselves,
want to use it in place of ourselves,
exactly to make ourselves better,
Yeah.
you still want
So
to
it's
owe us
basically
money
like
for it.
they don't want to be
and-
replaced, but
Right.
they want to be able to use the
to make their stuff
to make
better.
their job easier.
Basically,
yes.
And that's
Yeah.
what it comes down to. It's basically saying you can't replace us because then we can't get paid, but we'll make you pay us to use it.
to use it. Yeah,
more or less. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
If I'm reading between the lines,
they got balls.
They agreed
to ask
to
for
it.
that.
But hey, they agreed.
Because here's what the producers think: we don't give a crap as
Yeah.
long as we're making stuff that actually streams or
Yeah.
gets out in theaters
Yeah.
and people like.
I
But I
mean,
just think
it's
it's
an
funny
interesting
that
deal.
this whole this comes back to the moral grandstanding. If when we get into the devil is in the details, and if we actually get into what the agreement is, which it seems like a lot of this is being broken down as to what the actual legitimate agreement
Yeah.
is. And I'm thank you all for finding those articles.
Well, literally
we don't
that
have
one-
we don't have to wait until tomorrow.
That
to
one-
say
Some
are
breaking
very recent,
news.
like
So,
hours
yeah.
ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the deadline one I pulled up literally said it was released 2 hours ago. So
Believe it or not, Red Moon's on top of something.
we
for
got
once.
it. We got it.
Breaking news.
It's weird because it's like I just think the moral grandstanding of them not wanting to be replaced by AI is then quickly swept under the rug when it's like, but we still want to use it as a tool if we have it in our back pocket and we have a chance to use it. Again, if we're getting slammed or forever, because that's still going to be a point of contention coming for up and coming writers in a new age that are going to depend on it heavily. But again, if it's unbeknownst to either producers or directors or even the audience members mostly, then and anybody could argue this from an audience standpoint of what does it matter? You're getting entertaining content. And I'm like, In the same way that it would matter if I'm, again, if I'm watching somebody that is a deep fake and it's not the real actor, it's like I kind of want to know if I'm being fooled.
Yeah.
It's like I do have a right to know, and to some degree.
I want to know that tiger on Life of Pi is not a real tiger.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, again, this has always been in the age of digital technology and just, I guess, especially the ushering in of CGI and how heavily used it is. I mean, if there's one thing you could argue, it's how robust CGI has become, but also in the negative light, because it's used so often as a crutch for things and pumping things out, you can usually tell when it's not having the loving care that it needs to actually showcase something authentic like Life of Pi versus the Marvel crap that's been shoveled out.
And I will say, one thing this gives me some hope for, outside of the AI, because we're not really sure, like, this seems like it gives writers all the opportunity to use AI if they want without us knowing, so I'm not real sold on that. But as far as, like, the work hours and the staffing and having, like, more staff and stuff, like, it does give me some hope that maybe better writing will come, because that's one thing I know, especially with Disney. All of Disney's original crap recently has had horrible writing, and I'm hopeful maybe this does alleviate some of that. Maybe the writers, because that's been some of their defense, is to say, hey, this garbage writing isn't up to our standard either, but because we have to churn it out, we don't have time to really work on it and hone it in, so we just have to here you go, Disney, here you go, these big series.
And it's weird because the loophole that you just kind of we all just alluded to.
But if they use the AI, it may
Right.
not be any, or maybe it will be better, because maybe AI will make something better than what the writers are already doing.
Which
I don't
already
know.
tells you exactly what the industry wants to begin with when it comes to that.
Yeah.
Because it's only going to be a matter of time before the next agreement or the next cycle of agreement comes up and they don't renew contracts, because that becomes prevalent. And then you have production studios who are like, no, this is the way we want to do things.
Yeah. My fear with the AI, and granted, I know it's supposed to learn, and who knows, but there's already so many shows, so many movies that are just cookie cutter and bland, and I'm tired of it because it's the same crap, because they know you don't have to make Marvel great as long as we get the majority of people to keep tuning in because it has the Marvel name on it. And it's like, I'm tired of just this mediocre garbage. And AI only generates what it learns from. And if the most popular things are the mediocre garbage, I'm afraid that that's what AI is going to spew out, is like, well, this is what people want, because sadly people keep buying it.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that are we going to talk about Scorsese?
That's
'Cause
what
that,
we- yeah.
that,
Yeah, we
that
could
segues
segue,
right
yeah.
into that article.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's exactly what has become a point of contention. Obviously, Scorsese's been on the warpath ever since Avengers Endgame and beyond Marvel.
I don't disagree with his sentiment, but some of the way he says the things needs maybe a little bit more thought out.
Yes. I think it's like any director who works on a movie, when you don't plan properly, it's going to be crap. And I don't think he's the best speaker in the world.
Yeah.
Because the fact that he talked about comic book movies being the ruin of theatrical films and just film
People should
culture,
support people like Christopher Nolan
who
instead.
made the Dark Knight
comic
trilogy.
book movies. I mean,
Right. And here's the thing, I would have taken him seriously if he'd even said he ushered in a different
new way to
standard
make
of comic book films.
movies?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, he brings up points that I think are in the same vein in the sentiment of the original theme park ride comment he made a couple years ago. And yet his argument here is that when you have this mass produced, I mean, it's the same argument I'm hearing grumblings of jokingly on Twitter right now, or X, about Taylor Swift, and how it's just like she's just so part of the mythos that it's like literally she can show up at a freaking Kansas City
Chiefs
football game,
and
the whole rumor about her and Kelsey dating, and now all of a sudden his jersey skyrockets to like 600,000 jerseys sold. It's like there is a literal like cult of Taylor Swift out there that ushers in on her behalf. That I mean, her Swifties move to her defense.
Oh, yeah.
and will defend her at all costs. And
People
it's
who
just,
never watched football a day in their lives probably saw that game. They're
Yes.
just like, oh, Taylor Swift.
I will say I love the football player's mother.
Yes.
Standing next to Taylor Swift while she's acting. Oh my god!
I
She's
know,
acting a fool,
I
and the
know.
mom's just like, I can't believe.
Swear, every time I see
better
her,
not be dating
I'm
this
just
girl.
like, she has been so
She's so fake.
Exactly, she is. Okay, the weird thing about Michael Jackson was he was bizarre
was
and
just a
weird
weirdo.
because he had grown up in the spotlight.
Yeah.
he was like 5-6 years old when he was thrust into this. He never knew a normal life.
Right.
So that's why he turned out freaking weird and bizarre.
Yeah.
There was a part of him that was like, okay, he doesn't think like a normal person because he's not.
He never
Yeah.
grew up.
He never
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
Exactly. He never grew up. And he literally grew
Miley
up with
Cyrus.
Miley Cyrus has
She's
kind
a
of come
little-
too, though.
Yeah, well,
I-
yeah. Now
I don't know.
She's come around and like I feel like
Britney
she's somewhat-
Spears. is
Yeah.
another
Yes.
one.
Britney
Thrusted
Spears is-
in early,
yes.
and the
Yep.
industry ruined her.
Yes. But Taylor Swift, not so much. I remember it was the summer I was working in the machine shop with my dad, and there was an article in the paper about this up-and-coming country singer, and
Yeah.
it was Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
So she was 16, 17 when she started to get this kind of fame, or at least she started to be thrust into the spotlight. She at least had somewhat a childhood. She was obviously chasing after the fame. And look, I'm not saying she's not a brilliant marketer. She's got a great brand. I mean,
Yeah.
look, she's not vapid in the sense that I don't obviously I'm not going to take her political points or think that she culturally is understanding. She's very much in terms of she's not a thinker. She's not a critical thinker. But she knows how to touch on emotion, and obviously that's what she's good at selling. That's why
plays
she's
the
a
game.
she's a pop star.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she knows how to market herself and
Yeah.
brand herself.
So she doesn't really bother me just because I think like that. It's kind of her shtick. She knows what she's good at. She could sell it. I'm not a fan of her either way, so I don't really care what she does.
What I can't stand are the again the people who dilute themselves into thinking that she is the icon, and they put her up on the pedestal, and that's what she.
the people that think that she's just their best friend, even though they've never met her.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Because she hugs a celebrity's kid while she's on stage.
Yep.
Or something like
and
that.
And the thing is they'll continue to be her acolytes and go out there and do her bidding for her. And she knows she's got this fan base. It's the same as like Beyonce or any other huge pop star. But it's just crazy to me that the problem is when you have a rally behind that on such a massive scale, you end up with the same opinion of what Scorsese is talking about here in film is when you have this massive ushering in of a population of people who just jump on the bandwagon of something. We talked
Marvel.
about it with critical reviews. How for a while critics did not understand the Marvel bandwagon.
Oh, no, yeah.
They didn't jump on. They rated them milquetoast, and we were like, you all don't understand what they're doing here. They're building to something bigger. And then finally when they started to jump on the bandwagon, it was towards the end of the Infinity Saga. And then once that was over, it's kind of kept the ball rolling, and now they're starting to come back down to earth.
Yeah.
But fans were long since, it was at least a year and a half ago when they started Phase 4.
Oh yeah, Quantumania was getting rave reviews when it first came out, and then as it went on, the reviews started being like, no, this is, and it's like, well, they weren't. It wasn't ever good. It's just once you realize audiences didn't like it, critics did an about turn and be like, this movie's really not that good.
and once again, back to what we talked about a couple weeks ago, you can't tell me those critics weren't bought and paid for.
Oh, I'm sure.
With
When
the
we're
Rotten
talking
Tomatoes.
about Rotten Tomatoes.
I think Quantumania, like when it first released on Rotten Tomatoes, had like an 80 something, and I think it's in the 60s now. And it's that's because all
when
the
they do an about face like that, that's because the first time around they were getting paid.
the paid reviews came out first, and then as the movie went on, it's like, oh, these are the real reviews.
Oh, well, and I wouldn't say that, let alone being paid, but they also sent it off to screenings for the shills that they knew would jump right in their bandwagon. But you're right. Most of them were paid.
We would really like it if you gave Quantumania a good review.
Right. We just really
We'll
like
buy you Taylor Swift's tickets if you write a good review.
right. But no, I do think Scorsese's got a point. And yet it's interesting that he's raising this argument. And yet if you go back to the beginning of our show tonight where we're talking about 2 indie flicks and how we've over the last month avoided what has come out in the theaters because they've been particularly bad releases, or at least we don't know because we haven't reviewed them or seen them, but releases that didn't appeal to us because they seemed too cookie cutter. They were franchises, The Nun 2, Expendables 4. I mean, even movies like Gran Turismo, which have a little bit of a fresh take, it was a good movie, don't get me wrong, but it's a feel-good sports, come-up-it story. It's not it's not a new breakthrough or new look on the same genre. And I think when you watch something like No One Will Save You or even The Ritual from a few years ago, these movies that fly under the radar, I think what Scorsese's again, I think his words are not
They're not as articulate as they need to be.
They're not as articulate as they need to be.
Not as articulate as his films.
No,
right.
No.
And again, I think it just shows his craft of like your craft is on the screen,
Right?
Not in necessarily arguing for. On
He's
behalf
not a
of
great
cinema.
public speaker.
But I think he's missing, the few points that prop up his argument being one. I hate to say it, but the film industry is not pushing these smaller indie films to the theater anymore.
No.
And while you may be sad in that, you also have to argue how much content there is, because one of his arguments initially, what he said, and what he's also saying here, is how streaming has kind of ruined the theatrical model, but yet his movie, even though it's releasing in theaters, is from Apple TV Plus.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's going to be released there on a month anyway.
Oh, same thing with The Irishman on Netflix.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
his thing there was just like, well, I had to go to streaming services because they're the only ones that would let me make a 3.5 hour movie.
Right.
And it's like, okay, well then, what do you want? Because the big production companies, like you just said, aren't willing to. Even though you're Martin Scorsese, if anybody can convince a production company to let you make the movie you want to make, it should be you. But you're saying they won't let you make a 3 hour movie, so you had to go to a streaming service. Well, then you need to be looking at these production companies and hold them accountable.
Yeah.
Right. And this is where it kind of I see a little bit of the pot calling the kettle black.
Yeah.
It's an instance of, I'm going to take the years of experience I've had of establishing my name in this business and in Hollywood and use it to promote what I can get where I want to get it. And if Netflix and Apple TV Plus are looking for a big name to draw subscribers and I happen to be that name, well, I'm going to take it up because, hey, I can make the movie I want to make. Nobody's arguing for that.
Yeah.
We all want to see the next great Scorsese epic. But I also think it's a little bit disingenuous to then point the finger at the industry that you somehow are undermining as well.
Yeah.
Because they've changed their model to only prop up these films. And while you want to argue against them and say it's their fault, it's like, but if Paramount, if Universal, if Disney, all the major studios are making billions off of these major blockbusters, and your complaint is that they're not going to start making indie flicks that don't make them any money at all, I'm sorry, that's just a bad business model.
Yeah.
You're a filmmaker. You're not a businessman. And yet I would agree with you in regard to the way you've approached the issue. Go where you can make your film.
Yeah.
And I would argue that for anybody in the industry, which is why it's so interesting that this has taken place, or his comments took place in the midst of a WGA strike and a SAG strike.
Yeah.
Because maybe it's the industry as a whole that's broken in terms of, you can talk about their rights of wanting to get paid for the work that they produce, but yet they're also being propped up for the pay that they're already receiving from an industry that's lasted for 100 years.
Yeah.
What if they were going to make something else for some mom and pop shop that's a production studio that doesn't do deals with the WGA or SAG or whoever? Maybe if you didn't have unions that stipulated all these demands and you had a little bit more of a free market system, you might see a little bit more return on your investment, but maybe your investments also wouldn't be, one, as costly, or two, you wouldn't be receiving big $1 million payouts because you're not making big $1 million budget films.
Yeah. I think a little bit of this too. Not all, because I do think, like I said, I agree with some of his sentiment, but also both in the past and with this statement that he's making now, I see a little bit of like that unwillingness to change with the times. It's like he's used to, like you said, he's been in the industry for years. He's used to the heyday of the amazing theatrical releases. Hey, I loved in the 90s things like when you had the big, your next Spielberg epic or your Scorsese film, and that was their time, and that's great, and I still like these directors. But it is a little bit of an unwillingness to change with the times, even though he is making movies for streaming services.
Yeah.
Where it's like, but we can't let theater die. And it's like, I get it. I don't want theater to die either because I love going to the movies. But at the same time, things do evolve and change, and the industry has to evolve and change with them. And a lot of people prefer staying at home and streaming movies. And does that suck that an older way of doing things might die off or change? Yeah, but the people who made black and white films thought that the way about color. People who went from silent to sound thought sound was going to ruin cinema.
Digital,
They thought, you can't make talkies. That ruins the art craft. So it is a little bit of that too, I think, in that you're used to the craft and you don't want it to change, but it has to at some point.
I think he would argue from the standpoint of somebody like Spielberg not only created Jurassic Park, but did Schindler's List.
Yeah.
And yes, I would agree with you. There seems to be, I think, a better variety of the director we used to have, of someone who gained notoriety for their works of art, weren't just creating big blockbuster films.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I think that's something you could argue as far as with the culture of filmmaking in general. I think that's something that is why I still prefer looking forward to Jordan Peele's movies, is he's not sold out.
Right.
He's not just gone to the big blockbuster movie. He's been able to stick to smaller budget films, but still make a good return on his investment.
And that also depends on the director. Because
absolutely.
You got your Peels, your Tarantinos, your Nolans,
Then you
your
Ari
Wes
Aster's.
Anderson. Yes.
M. Night, who was that small time quiet filmmaker,
Yeah.
and then he went. What happened to him?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the weird thing is he came back with small budget, and then he went back to doing bigger budget, and it's
the
just
Visit
terrible.
and Split, everybody was like, "Oh, M. Night's back," and then from Glass on, it's just kind of been another.
Yeah.
Glass, old, and I hate to say it, it's like, and even his latest, the Knock at the Cabin,
God.
and
that was
they're
terrible.
not big budget. Glass was a little bit more big budget. But
I mean, Glass was the turning point, but I still liked it. After that, it's just not. He's been downhill.
well, he's only
again.
done Knock at the Cabin since.
He did Old.
Old
Yeah,
was
so
right
like
after
the
Glass.
two
I
movies
forgot.
right after Glass.
Yeah,
I was
those
just
were
like
terrible. But even then, the other thing I would argue against Scorsese is, when has film ever, in that regard? I mean, when you even think of Tarantino, a lot of what he draws from, and even Scorsese in terms of some of the methods he uses, are, older films that came out in foreign countries, whether it be Italy or France or Japan even. I mean, you talk about this love of the creation of film and how it's such a wide array. And I would agree that you could argue maybe the industry has lost sight of that in favor of just going after a big budget, blockbuster, or trying to rake in the dough. But also I would say that those movies too, and exactly what you were trying to popularize, or what you even base some of your filmmaking, prowess on, those were never mainstream. Those things have always only ever been for film lovers. Those things have always existed for people who want to know the not only the craft of filmmaking, but have participated in how film has lasted beyond 100 years in so many different facets, and how it transcends cultures, and how we communicate in a deeper emotional level amongst one another. But you can always preserve that by passing that on to the next generation. But does that have to be like you said, Keith, in a theater seat? Or can you release that on streaming, or even doing the Criterion Collection, where their whole love of preserving film so that it's in the highest fidelity possible so that they can pass it on to the next generation? There are ways of preserving these things that you pass it on that, like you said, don't necessarily lend themselves to being the way you were brought up experiencing it. But just because you're not walking to some art house theater downtown to see a $2 film that happens to be a foreign film, and people aren't wanting to go and they aren't hungering for that on a mass level, doesn't mean it's not there. It never really was there. Because even when you look at Scorsese's films and his catalog, they're still mainstream for a reason.
Yeah.
There's still things in them that don't equate themselves to being low budget, or even to the point of saying, oh, this is, this isn't going to have mass appeal. And again, that's part of the craft of filmmaking and part of his craft as a director, that he's able to not only showcase that love of film, but I mean, think of George Lucas and putting in samurai, fights in the middle of a freaking space cowboy. It's a space opera with cowboys. It's cowboys in space. And so,
samurai.
With samurai. I mean, it's like, again, that's the tapestry that is not only filmmaking, but I would even argue American cinema. And I will agree with him that we have lost touch of that. But I also think you're seeing it resurrected in ways in which people are turning to streaming.
Yeah.
And they're finding it in other facets, such as us, who are going and, I mean, No One Will Save You not only was an indie flick from a director that I had never heard of or never really seen.
I mean, they did hardly any promotion for it.
Yeah.
Right. But also, The Ritual came out, 4 or 5 years ago.
That was fantastic, yeah.
But also, it was from the UK. So it's like a film that released overseas that was
If
brought
not
here
for
by
streaming,
Netflix.
we've never seen it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, even Talk to Me, which was a theatrical release from A24, I haven't seen a whole lot of promotion on, which is surprising because after some of the huge hits A24 has had, you would think that would be a little bit more heavily promoted because it has gotten good reviews. So it's just interesting now some of these smaller films do get overlooked because you have big releases like The Nun, which is garbage.
Yeah.
And I mean, people will go see it because it's a part of the larger Conjuring universe and they're hooked on that. You know, everything has to be a universe and we got to see the next entry in this universe.
Right.
Yeah.
But other than the diehards who aren't going to stop watching them, it's gotten old.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I would even argue too that and I'm not arguing against him and the point he's making. I think we're bringing levity to the words he's brought up and trying to articulate them in a way that maybe he means it based on what he's talked about before. But also, I think it's interesting that it's like I think you're seeing that turn naturally, not because we're attuned to what he's saying because we follow the film industry. But normal visitors, the people who are going and buying Taylor Swift concert tickets, funny enough, are also not the same people that are showing up, or they may be the same people showing up to Marvel movies. But also I've noticed this steady trend in the dropping ticket sales and the diminishing returns that Marvel and DC are both seeing on whether they're streaming shows or the movies they release. So you can't sit here and tell me that audiences aren't smart enough to catch on to this.
Yeah.
And I think that's my biggest stickler with Scorsese. I understand, again, he's a director. He comes from kind of that institutional point of view of, I'm going to tell it like I see it from the director's chair. But to me, the argument is not so much more Hollywood, which its whole business model is to make movies that do not only entertain, but bring in money to quote unquote fund these other projects or ventures.
It is a business. If you're not making money, you're not making anything.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying is it's like, do we really want the industry to be on the brink of total collapse? Or do we want some of these movies that do make some money
I
to...
kind of would like to see it on the brink of total collapse.
I would love to see a diversification of where
Yes.
the resources come from to make. But that's also been the beauty of the independent market. How much more varied is it because of technology and how close you can get to making, not only close, but how damn near exact you are to making cinematic films with equipment that doesn't cost you an arm and a leg from companies that are just out there to get the hands in the or to get the equipment into the hands of the creators, but also put the onus and the trust in the audience. I'm sorry, but it's kind of the Field of Dreams method. Build it and they will come.
Yeah, no, I
Make
I
the
agree.
movie and they will show up. Trust me, there is a lot of schlock out there and there is a lot of hidden gems. But after a while, people will find good movies because they'll get tired of the mind
The
numbingness.
saturation of
Exactly.
Well, that's why, because Sean sent us that thing about The Ritual this year because a lot of people online were talking about it. It's a movie from 2017 that has resurfaced, that has gotten a cult following, and that's what inevitably happens when you make a movie that is good and resonates with people. Word of mouth will get it around, even if it's several years later. Sadly, people will say you need to check this out.
Where I saw it and it reminded me of that, I was like, oh my gosh, like I want to watch that again. And the guy, my friend's got to watch this movie, was freaking Facebook.
Yeah.
It popped up in a Facebook group.
Yeah.
And it's like, of all things, social media is there to bring up things that haven't been seen.
And I've said it before, but that's exactly why things like Bird Box and Squid Game take off.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not to put those on that level, but the idea of how powerful social media is, and probably my last point I want to make is, again, I think, it irritates me when you want your audiences to be sophisticated enough that, oh, well, they're coming to see my film, so they know what to expect from me. But these are the same audience members that may go see a Marvel movie.
Right.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
call them dumb.
So you're basically saying that, oh, they're not smart enough to make this decision on their own.
are just too stupid.
Right. Right. And I've never agreed with that.
No.
I've always thought that's a cop-out when it comes to making... I mean, look, I get it. There is low brow when it comes to certain films.
Yeah.
But that's the thing.
Twilight fans are obviously those audience members are stupid. We know that.
Well, yeah.
You can't generalize, but
Take a whiff.
some people. I'm just saying. I get the point.
So
it's like
bad.
I would never argue that all audiences are stupid, but some people in the audience may be.
Yeah.
And look, I've always think it's a bad move to then denigrate the people you're making the films for, to try to pivot and say, well, we don't trust you to make these decisions for yourself. But again, it's like, that's a cultural problem as a whole. That's not just a film issue. But I also believe that is, I think it is a perfect insight into that which is Hollywood.
Oh, yeah.
And the bubble they're a part of.
You like what we tell you to like, otherwise you're wrong.
Exactly. I think it's funny because, again, with beating around the bush, what Scorsese fails to realize here in his own understanding of his point is that maybe you and Hollywood in general have been closed off for far too long in your own bubble, apart from the actual common day man, and you aren't really necessarily tied in with everyday life. And you deliberately, as an industry, have moved yourself away from being part of the common man, and you act like it when your union strikes and when you're out there picketing day in and day out, and it's like, you're not the same.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but you're not. And it's like, or at least that's not who you celebrate. And that to me is the biggest slap in the face of all. It's like whether or not you have thousands of employees who are normal below the line workers who actually make the product you're talking about preserving, it's the highbrow celebrity status that gets out in the spotlight that claims to be the spokesperson of your movement that gets all the shame from everybody else because we see it as $1 million face that doesn't really care about anybody's real struggles. And we don't sympathize with freaking Sean Penn or Meryl Streep or Mark Ruffalo.
Every time he said something about the strike, I'm like, man, you don't give a crap about
Just
the
shut up.
It's like you have no concern about the common man. Just
Go back to
One
Ukraine.
person that I saw in the comments that I will give credence to, and everybody was thanking him, and didn't say hardly anything. Drew Carey apparently paid for 2 restaurants, and he paid the tab for almost a full month or 2 months straight. And anybody could go in and get whatever they wanted, and it was charged to Drew Carey. And it ended up costing him like $10,000 a week to feed anybody who stopped by. So it was, I think, rumored that he spent like $500,000 or $600,000 to pay for these people to eat. And I'm like, that's putting your money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say, The Rock.
And did he get out there and tell everybody about it?
No.
I read where The Rock
He literally made an announcement saying, hey, go here to these places. Your tab's covered. Don't worry about it. That was it.
I did see where The Rock had written some checks.
To 7-figure checks. Yeah. And look, I'm not bemoaning those people who do put their money where their mouth is. But again, that's not to take away from what we just brought up in the point of so many of the people in the industry itself are far removed from what normal everyday citizens go through. Because that's why you'll see even the movie that I think I sent you all this past week about a trailer called The Blind about Robinson, the duck hunt or the duck.
Phil Robinson.
Phil Robinson's like true story, his backstory, and there were 2 huge studios that turned it down because they said it was too controversial, because it dealt with faith-based things.
Yeah.
Again, these are the types of movies that we just saw it with Sound of Freedom over the summer. Huge industry groups are turning down because rather than take the money and promote it, because heaven forbid they know most of their leftist friends and political viewpoints of the industry will turn against them with such vitriol and will get them on the cancel culture bandwagon that they have to turn down things that will certifiably not only make them money, but will with their resources boost it to a degree that will make it such a huge hit, normal audiences will flock to go see it and support it. But heaven forbid we ever touch base with that part of the populace. See, that's the onus that I put on Scorsese. Those are the details about what he's talking about in a broad view. He doesn't want to get into the details about. And that's what he's avoiding. And ultimately, until Hollywood itself actually looks in the mirror and realizes they're part of the problem and they're part of what this culture deteriorating is, then the problem's still going to stay the same, which is why I think we all bemoaned the fact that, yes, the strike ended and is coming to an end. They could stay closed for a lot longer, and it would be probably better for all of us. All right, I think we're going to move into our final segment of the night. It is our relationship segment.
Let me tell you about the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees and the moon up above and a thing called love.
All right, real quick, guys, because we're already... He had to do it again. He always does it.
That's 2 in a row.
Gosh,
That was the relationship segment. I have to throw some hate in there.
young and dumb and in love. That's our relationship segment.
Yeah, like Anakin, young, dumb, and in love.
Yeah. He was young, dumb, and in love, and look what he did. He killed Padme.
I know it.
He killed a lot of people.
He did. Younglings.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we got like 3 minutes. 2
Yeah,
minutes.
we
Crap.
do. I just wanted to throw it out there. What's the time that you were young, dumb, and in love?
Most of my life.
It's like you had to bring up freaking Anakin. And all I can think of is that scene where he's standing behind her, like trying to touch her. And then he talks about sand. He's like, "You're soft.
Yeah. It's
Sand is
smooth.
coarse.
Sand is coarse.
Yeah.
It gets everywhere."
I hate it.
I hate it. Yes.
No, do y'all have a
terrible.
young, dumb, in love romance that you remember from your childhood, your preteen
I don't know, most
days?
of them, I guess.
I'm going to go to my first one.
Oh, man.
Ooh, Sean, open up.
I'm not going to say her name.
Okay.
Not that she'd be watching. She's probably dead.
Oh,
Honestly,
my
I don't
Gosh.
know. So, but no, like the first love was in first grade. And it ended tragically. But it was going pretty good. I mean, I called her my girlfriend, and she told everybody that I was her boyfriend, and we were like 6 years old. But like, was with my grandmother and my mom yard sailing one Saturday, and my grandmother was like, "Oh, Sean, this girlfriend you've got at school, you should buy her something while we're out shopping," because out shopping was yard sailing to my grandmother.
Get some
And
good deals.
so she was just like, "Oh, girls love smelly soaps. You should get her a smelly soap." So at a yard sale, I bought with like a quarter a bar of soap.
Was it Dial?
No, it was some kind of fancy soap. It smelled
Unused,
like lavender, and
being at
it
a
was
yard,
brand new. It was
being
wrapped
at
up.
a yard sale.
Yeah, it was wrapped up and everything. So yeah, spent a
Stolen
quarter
from a hotel.
It probably was. Spent a quarter on the soap, wrapped it, took it to school, and gave it to her at school in front of everybody.
Gave her soap.
Yes, and she opened it, and
think we're trying to
she
say I
threw it
smell?
at me. Yeah, she threw it at me, and
Yeah.
we were not boyfriend and girlfriend after that.
Oh,
Yeah,
she
girls
My grandmother
girls
ruined
don't
our
want
relationship.
Soap, Sean.
She knew what she was doing. Grandma was like, "He's too young. Give her soap."
That's not true, Keith. I mean, maybe eczema soap,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying. I know plenty of. My wife loves.
now.
bath soaps
I'm just
and
saying,
bombs
6-year-old,
and all
she
that
didn't
stuff.
want
No,
soap.
6-year-old.
she wanted a
No.
gift card to Toys R Us.
Yeah.
That's what she wanted. She wanted the next
shoulda did
Backstreet
that.
Boys CD.
Yeah, I could have probably got her a necklace for a quarter at
That
a yard
too.
sale, but I went with the soap because I listened to my grandmother, God love her, and she ruined my relationship. First one in the ground.
Wow. That was it. And
That
it was
was it.
soap. Soap that did it. If you had given her Dr. Bronner's,
They didn't have that.
you might have. I'm just saying.
Oh no, it's existed.
It's
for
been
a
around
long
for 300 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
My
one true God
grandparents used
faith
to have some
soap.
Dr. Bronner's.
I'm just saying, Dr. Bronner's might
Yeah.
have sealed your fate.
I don't
mean,
know what it was.
Sawyer.
It was wrapped in.
Andrew,
It was nice. It was
Amelia
pretty.
may not have
I think
ever
it had
existed.
I think it had lace tied around it.
Wow,
Oh,
you
like
got
a bow on
articulate.
it.
Yeah.
No, I didn't do that. The soap came that way.
Oh.
That's how I knew it was fancy because it
Yeah.
had like
wow.
a lace
Like this
thing
soap
tied around
is
it.
worth every 25 cents.
That's right.
That went into
And
it.
I didn't even tell her how much I spent on it. It wasn't like
She didn't know.
she had no clue. I could have spent $20 on it for all she knew. She
Your-
broke
all
it.
your
She broke
allowance.
it in half, and which she was strong for a first grader.
broke the
She
soap
was
in
tall,
half.
dude. She was way taller than me.
That's wrong,
Yeah, she
though.
popped it in half and threw it, and that was
I mean,
it.
there's part of me that kind of, that's the beauty of the innocence of that age. Is
Yep.
you just don't care about the other person's feelings.
You know what happened
And
though?
did you?
No, like how am I? 40.
Well, she could be dead now, so.
She wasn't dead about 10 years ago.
Okay.
Because about 10 years ago or so,
She reached out.
she reached out on Facebook,
And
tried
she
to hit it again.
Wanted soap.
She couldn't get enough of it. She was probably wishing she wouldn't have broke
Wow.
that soap.
She was like, "You got any more soap?"
Yep, that was another. No, I'm not going to say it. Never mind.
She said, "I moved on. I
Yeah.
moved on to this brand. You should try it."
Yeah.
Dude, what if she had
Should've
hit you
brought
up
that
with a
Irish
brand of
Spring.
soap?
She was going to my dad's church for a while, and that's how it.
No way.
Yeah, it was like,
So she
oh, your
grew
last
up
name
around
is
here.
Sebastian, and then, oh yeah, my son went to school at Medora. Oh yeah, so did I.
I will say I did
Then I got
have
a Facebook message.
I never did respond. Again, I don't think she's watching the show. I think she's still alive. But I did have it was an elementary school crush, and she reached out. I mean, it's been years ago now, 5-6 years ago. But it was kind of a shock because it was one of those where she always knew she was playing hard to get. Mm-hmm. She always knew that she was just out of reach, and she knew I liked her, and she knew all the boys in the classroom liked her, and she played that up, and I never ever went out with her. She was one of my first kisses, but it was interesting because she ended up reaching out to me on Facebook as well, and she was like, "Hey," I remember because the message preview popped up. And it just said, "Hey, do you remember me?" But I never responded, didn't open the message. I just saw the initial prompt, and I was like, not going there.
Fool.
Because it's like...
It was just the message. Hey, do you remember me?
Right. It's like, okay.
You could be married now.
No. It's one of those, it's like, you had your chance, okay? Now you want to jump on this?
Oh, he was bitter.
Yeah. You want to jump on this train now?
He's like, I don't want to be married to you now.
Well, I hate to say this.
You should have accepted me.
Stay alone.
You should have accepted me back in elementary school.
That's right.
Well, let's just say... some things didn't hold up, okay? All right. So
she's like, she's not good looking anymore. I don't want her.
Yeah.
It's terrible. It's terrible. I never said that. Did not. But no, the other Young, Dumb, and in Love was, I've got to bring it up because it was the first definite huge infatuation. Still talk to her on occasion. She still tunes in too from time to time. So Kat, if you're listening.
Oh.
But yeah, 16, train ride of love, home from San Antonio. Way it all started, the week beginning, we met. Totally distanced myself from her. I saw her as kind of like this, threat of like, all right, I'm not down here for you. And I've already been warned by her friends like, hey, she's a player. So I treated her like trash the whole week.
Oh gosh.
And then like the last day we were there, it was like we get on this train ride and we spend this whole time talking, and I just got to know her. And of course it just blossomed into this romance. And of course come home, and then of course the trip's over, and now we're all of a sudden 300 miles apart, and we got to try to keep up this long distance relationship. Didn't work out, but we still keep in touch.
What were you in San Antonio for?
Church
it was a church camp. It was like a church youth event, and we drove to St. Louis to catch the train, and then they were already on the train for like a few hours.
So she was from St. Louis?
She's actually from Moline, Illinois. Okay. So she's which she doesn't live up there anymore. Her parents are still there. But they had already been on the train for like 3 hours, and they stopped off in St. Louis, and then we got on, and then we drove from there, and it was like a 26 hour train ride down to San Antonio. And so we first got to initially know each other. And I threw a lot of shade at her. I gave her the cold shoulder quite a bit, and she was just trying to get to know people. And I let some rumors basically become my idea of who she was without getting to know her. And then on the train ride home, it just blossomed into something more. And we were we stayed strong in terms of like at least for a few months, keeping it up. Okay. And then even then, it was still like it wasn't like we stopped talking, but. I mean, this was like it was so funny because we would do AIM. You get on Instant Messenger, be up, and then it'd be like 3, 4 in the morning. My mom would be like, "Brandon,
are you
still up?" I'd be like, "Yeah." Like, get to bed. Gotta go. Exactly. And then you just hear the door shut on the AIM. But then there were times too where, and this was our other friend, Keith, her, Carrie, in high school. One of the other antics we had was that I couldn't call her because it was long distance, and I still owe her $500 because she called me, but she couldn't call because it would ring the phone at night, and I didn't have a cell phone at the time. I wasn't allowed to get one until I could drive. So I was just turned 16, didn't have my license yet, but I would call Carrie at night, and we had call waiting. So while I was on the phone with Carrie, and I would message Carrie and be like, "Hey, can I call you so Kat can call me?" And she'd be like. She got so pissed. She hated the fact that I would do this. So I'd call Carrie. Kat would call me. I'd answer. I'd be like, "Hey, thanks, Carrie. She's calling. Bye." And then I'd hang up and answer the phone on Kat, so the phone wouldn't ring. And then I'd spend the night on the phone with Kat.
That is smart.
And so she took the hit on the long distance call, and it racked up like a $500 phone bill. over like several nights of doing this.
Oh, wow.
And I still claim I'm gonna pay it back. I'm gonna pay her back one of these days. But no, I mean
When you need to pay her parents back, I'm sure they're the ones that paid the.
Well, no,
$500.
she spent the whole summer paying them back, so I technically owe her the money.
$1,500 on a phone.
you just
I
got
don't
clean
think you
then,
plan
yeah.
on paying her back anytime
Yeah.
soon.
Cat, if you want a new iPhone. But no, hey, you know what? We still keep in touch. Like I said, she tunes in every once in a while. I'll have to send her a clip of this episode, and unless she's tuning in now, and hey, how you doing? But no, we still keep in touch, and everything's good. She's down in Orlando. She actually works for our enemy, Disney.
Oh, gosh.
Dun dun dun. Nah, she knows we throw shade at them all the time. But no, hope you're doing well. Tune in. We love all the like, share, subscribe. But Keith, what about you,
Let's
young,
hear it.
dumb, and in love?
I got nothing eventful
What?
I can think of.
What?
I mean, I didn't.
I know.
When it comes to
stories.
love relationship, then you tell them because
What
I
about
don't
the
know
twin?
any story.
Yeah.
But nothing. No, I never dated Abby.
Allie.
But I wasn't going to name names anyways. So
Nobody
He
knows
just
who
did.
they are.
I know. I know.
I name drop Cat.
He did. Well, you didn't name drop a name. I wasn't going to either.
She's
but
dead,
that's
though.
Okay.
She could be.
More out of comfort for myself. I wasn't going to name names. So now I really won't
I
tell
don't
the
want to
story.
dead name
Here's
somebody.
the thing. Nobody knows their last name.
True.
Dead name.
True.
Nobody knows their last name, and they're both married now. And
That's
have
true,
kids.
but
so
I
I
mean-
don't think it's.
But like I said, they're all
Statute of
uneventful.
limitations
I can't-
is gone.
I can't think. I'll probably think of something afterwards, but everything I can think of is like uneventful, like non-humorous.
I know of another one.
I didn't
too.
have a very
doesn't have to be
sordid
humorous.
love life.
Yeah, no, it doesn't have to
I
be
know.
humorous. Just one that you remember that you know you
of another one.
opined.
Which?
It was a loose one in middle school. You were in middle school.
Oh, that one wasn't nothing that I know of.
You had a crush,
I
though.
did, but
That's
I mean, there's
young-
no story
it's
there.
young love.
I got her to sign my yearbook.
Was that a big move?
There you go.
I guess it's like, hey, sign my yearbook.
I
Then you
remember
feel
that.
good about yourself. I don't know.
What'd you write in hers?
I don't know if I signed hers. I assume I
That's
did.
based, man.
Yeah.
That's a G move right
Yeah,
there.
right.
You sign mine, but me,
Yeah.
I ain't
I don't.
signing
I'll be
yours.
honest. I might have. I don't remember signing anybody's yearbook other than probably. Heck, I don't even remember signing yours, but I'm sure I did.
We knew we were going to see each
Yeah.
other. I don't think
we
I
did.
signed
I don't think
yours.
we did. I think we were like, that's stupid. Like
I
we
remember-
see each other. Here's the young dumb and in love.
Yeah, that's it.
Me and Brandon were just like, we don't need to sign each other's yearbooks. We're always going to be in each
Yeah.
other's lives.
That's it. So, who knew? From 2 years old on, 30 years later, here we are.
Yeah.
I remember.
It's a good thing you ought to make one of those pacts or whatever where
For
it's like,
the-
hey, if we're not married by 35,
For the
we're
longest,
just going to marry each other.
Yeah. Oh gosh, Brandon did have someone who wanted to make that pact with him, but it never happened. I don't think. I'm not naming names.
Not
either on
naming
that
names.
One.
No.
That one he won't. I knew that one he wouldn't. No, I do. I know. Back when we were younger, because you would know this one, but for the longest time, if you remember Brianna down the street with the Haneys, who every like I assume for all those years that she liked me, because I know a lot of people like our age kept trying to make that a thing, and I was never interested or whatever. But there was this, it was such an awkward situation. I want to say maybe it was middle school time ish. I get this, like, Samantha had come back to, because she stopped living with her grandmother right next door to my house for a while, and then she was back over there for whatever reason. And at that point, like, because I remember even you were just like, you hadn't seen Samantha in a long time at that point. You know, puberty had already hit, and she looked good. And I get this letter, and I was disappointed, to be honest, because this little note Samantha gives me, and it's this thing about having a crush on me, and I thought it was Sam, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. But then she's like, oh, no, this isn't for me. This is from Brianna.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
And I'm just like...
Yeah.
And then
Heart was broken.
Well, not even heart, because I mean, I didn't really think of Sam in that way until the moment. But then I was like, no, like, I mean, because me and her had been close growing up,
Yeah.
closer as far as the female friends on the street.
Yep.
I would say Sam was the friend I was closest to of all the girls. So it was one of those things where, in the moment, I was just like, oh no, that could work. I see that. And then it's when she's like, no, this isn't for me. Then I'm like, well, this is something I've been aware of for a long time and never acted on because I have no desire to. And now it's just kind of like, now I'm in this awkward situation
Yeah.
of being like,
Well, crap. Now you're thinking about
because
her in the
apparently
way that
Brianna
Brianna
was so
yeah.
shy and scared, I guess, to tell me herself. She gave this note to Sam, and now I'm just like,
I don't want.
well, I'm just like, now I got to tell
Yeah.
you both, like, I'm
That's
not
great.
interested. So
Keith's
yeah,
just like, I wasn't interested.
He wasn't.
no offense, like, but it's just one of those things
No.
where I wasn't.
I had a crush on Tia.
Yeah.
I always thought Tia was kind of cute. That was Patrick's sister.
Well, I told you that like I actually spoke with her not that long
Yeah.
ago, just randomly through Facebook. It was weird,
But it's crazy. It's like, I mean, it's so being young, dumb, and in love.
Yeah,
man. You're
it
just little.
happens.
It happens. You have a crush on somebody, and then, like I said, I mean, I had a new girlfriend probably every day in elementary school. It was always, someone you were opining after. And
Yeah.
when they didn't like you, or you'd move to somebody else, or you like this person one week, and then it was like, well, we broke up because of this, and then you move on to the next. It's something so stupid.
Yep.
And then, just never ended. It was great.
Things work.
Good
They
times.
break down. They don't work.
It happens. What about everybody out there? Are you young, dumb, and in love? Write us.
Not if you're too young, you probably shouldn't be watching this.
No,
But
you shouldn't. It's a strong PG-13.
Have you ever been young, dumb, and in love?
Of course.
Just like Anakin.
Just like Anakin.
I just enjoy hate so much more than love.
Hate has made you powerful.
Yeah.
I hate you.
But email us.
Only the Anakin version of hate. That's like the best version of hate.
Oh, of course.
Like, I hate you
if
so
you're
much.
gonna be evil,
Just
be
kill
Anakin
younglings.
evil. That's
It's like, I love you, like Anakin hates Obi-Wan.
that's right.
You've turned her against me.
You have done that yourself.
Oh.
All righty, guys. Email us, rmpodcast@redmoonproductions.com. Tell us about your story of young, dumb, and in love. That's right. You can email us again. I'm not going to say it again because Keith is better at it than I am.
RMPodcast @redmoonproductions.com.
Fantastic. Beautiful. But also there's those other ways of reaching out to us. Like, share, subscribe on all of our social media networks. That's right. Red Moon Book, Red Moon Tweet, Red Moon. Hold on, I haven't brought it up yet. Red Moon Pics on Instagram at Red Moon Productions. Search for that on YouTube.
I think that Red Moon tweet needs to become Red Moon X.
It does.
Red Moon X.
Here's the thing. Red Moon
X.
X is taken. So I've
What?
got to come up with.
What?
I think I'm going to
How
keep
dare they?
it Red Moon Tweet and then just change. I need to change the lower third is still the Twitter bird, and we need to get rid of it. I got to figure out how to. I got to edit that this week. It's on the back burner.
I'm not okay with Red Moon X already being taken.
Yeah,
I know.
It's probably the Porta-Pot company.
It's probably that torture porn site that we're going to have to review for October.
I don't know why it didn't occur to me when I was typing it in, but the moment I typed in torture porn,
You knew.
I was like, I've
when
made
you
a
put
great.
the word porn in. That
I was like, I've made
Yeah.
an error here.
I mean, the new Safari would at least catch it and be like, "Hey, what you're about to pull up has got sensitive content." Alrighty, guys, that's gonna do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Until next week, we are the Red Moon Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Brendan Davidson, alongside our normal dude,
Sean Sebastian.
And say it.
Crud.
Oh.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.